Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep into a topic that honestly never loses its importance. Women's safety in India.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking at this through a really unique lens today, the very first Indian podcast list newsletter.
So for those who haven't seen it yet, this newsletter, it doesn't just give you headlines. It uses a podcast to bring awareness to this issue.
It is a really refreshing approach, actually. It goes beyond those traditional reports or articles and taps into audio storytelling, poetry, even personal reflections to connect with the audience.
Yeah, it's like using a different part of your brain almost to engage. So they recommend a few different audio pieces to really understand this issue.
Right.
One that caught my eye, Dear Daughter, from the podcast Horror Tape.
Oh, interesting.
It's a fictional story, a horror story actually, but it has this chilling connection to the reality of what women face in India.
Yeah, I mean, the premise itself is quite haunting. You have this Zamindar who's haunted by the spirits of his murdered daughters. And that really reflects the very real issue of female infanticide,
It's
right?
stark.
Yeah, it's dark. It's using that genre to point at a dark reality. And what hits hard is, it makes you think about the vulnerability of girls. I mean, sometimes even before they're born.
Absolutely. And, it's one thing to see statistics, but to hear it woven into a story, it just, I don't know, it gets under your skin.
Sure.
And the newsletter also recommends another episode from Horror Tape called Revenge.
Oh, revenge. See, that to me shows they want listeners to go deeper, explore more. It's not just, here's a podcast, it's here's a starting point.
Yeah, like opening a door to a whole world you might not have known about before. It's like, dive in if you dare.
Exactly, exactly. And talking about different approaches, they also recommend Yesal Bayan Se. That translates to This Question is for the Brothers.
Okay.
It's a poem from the Bougainville podcast, and it addresses societal issues like head on.
I'm usually more of a narrative person,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to see how poetry tackles something this complex.
Yeah. See, poetry, it has this unique power, right? It
Yeah.
evokes raw emotions. So even though it might not be as direct as a story, the language, the rhythm, they stick with you.
Hmm.
And then you start thinking about the issues in a different way.
It's almost like it bypasses your logical brain and goes straight to the heart.
Exactly. It creates a feeling, an atmosphere, more than just giving information, which I think is really powerful.
Absolute.
And what's striking is, the host of this poem, he calls out to the listeners, especially men, to really question those societal norms, advocate for change, be part of the solution.
A call to action. I like that. And the final podcast in this newsletter, it's a pretty powerful one. It's from a podcast by Amit, and the episode is called Women is Worthy of Worship. Stop Rape.
Whoa, that title, it just hits you, right?
It does. It's hard-hitting.
It's this very personal reaction to violence against women. And it reminds us that we're not talking about abstract things here, but real lives, real people.
Yeah, it centers the experiences of those actually affected. And I think the newsletter is making a point to say, hey, we need to hear from these voices too.
Absolutely. It's saying there isn't one right way to talk about this. We need space for all those different experiences, different perspectives.
So much to think about. If we step back, look at the bigger picture, what does this deep dive really tell us? For me, it shows just how powerful podcasts can be.
Absolutely.
They're not just entertainment.
No.
They can educate us, make us aware, and who knows, maybe even inspire us to take action. And this Indian podcast list newsletter, it's like a map to find those impactful pieces of audio.
I couldn't agree more. It's like curating an experience, right? A listening experience that can really inform us and inspire us. So listeners, check out the full newsletter, the links in the show notes.
Definitely. And subscribe to the Indian podcast list. You'll get insightful recommendations delivered straight to your inbox. It's a great way to discover content that matters, whether you're already, deep into these issues or just starting to learn.
Yeah, a valuable resource.
Absolutely. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. After hearing about these podcasts, the issues they bring up, what sticks with you, and what can you do, even something small, to make things safer for women, maybe even in your own community? Sometimes, it's those little actions that can cause the biggest ripples.
That's a great point. Something to think about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Catch you next time.
See you then.